In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil lurking, with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannon could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make me get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ike. Welcome to my channel. Let's get one thing out of the way. Go ahead and click that like button. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button. Hit the bell button twice. The woke narrative. Basically, saying that social, political, and economic life is basically a struggle for groups or between groups for power, right? And it is all about groups struggling for power. It is not about competency, for example, competency with that we judge and that we then use towards getting towards certain objective ends or whatever it may be. It is really about just groups struggling for power, and that the groups that have power or the group that has power creates language, structures, systems, institutions, and whatnot to oppress the other groups. And the purveyors of this message will then say, if you listen to me, Mr. Oppressed person, if you follow my politically correct mandates, say what I tell you to say, do what I tell you to do, I can deliver you from your oppressors. I can free you from the shackles. Okay, I can expose to you the truth about the fact that your enemy, okay, is really the let's say, heterosexual male patriarchy, for example, or something of that nature, right? So we're going to get into its roots, the roots of this kind of thing, and we're going to couch it in a particular way, which is that it is basically another way of some elite telling you that they know better, and if you follow their program, they can be your savior. Now, this pattern is not just something that we notice in organizations or groups, societies. This is a pattern that human beings also exhibit on an individual level. People are quote unquote busybodies and know it all and trying to control everybody all the time is a lot of what people are trying to do 24/7, right?
That is true.
This is definitely true. But anyways, our regular co-host at this point, I guess, every Thursday, Aitwa in the building. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I am doing very well, ladies and gentlemen. As you come in, please go ahead and click that like button. Okay. uh, uh, Trader. That's a good one. There is a. Let's see there. Anyways, let me ask you something. Let's start with this, okay? Because I was saying that I always like pointing out exactly what it is that we're proposing, what it is that we're arguing, what it is the statement, what's our claim right at the beginning, so that at least we know what our guidepost is. We're saying that we're going to explain the origins of wokeness, okay? And for that, we're going to need to know what woke is, right?
Right.
I just generally said something about the idea that social and political life is all about group struggle, okay? That what you may call standards or norms, these are not objective things. These are just ways in which the group in power is trying to keep you from getting in the club, right? And
Right.
if you listen to me, Mr. Woke person, if I'm the woke person, I'm preaching to you. If you listen to me, okay, I can tell you I can show you the way, okay? It's like a religion in this way, but also if you say these right things, okay, and you also if you're the person that is doing the oppressing, okay, I can show you how you have privilege. For example, I can show you how you need to watch out for your microaggressions. I can show you how you need to watch out for the manifestations of your privilege and all those other kinds of things. I can show you your place in the oppression Olympics. I can show you your place in the whole intersectional oppression game, right? So that's the landscape we're playing in here, because basically what's the main thing there is that it's about struggle between groups. There's never a question of, well, is this the best way to do X? Is this the best way to educate the children? It's like, no, that's just your white phallogocentric male way of looking at the world. Okay. There
Very
are other
true.
ways of being and knowing, that kind of a thing. So I think that if we are in that landscape, then we know where we are. I'm seeing your nods. I'm seeing nods and perhaps laughs in the chat. So we know the landscape that we're in. But let me start playing this video. And I want to say something about the whole elites thing, because that's what we're going to couch it into. Okay. I'm saying that whole wokeness thing is nothing. It can be couched underneath a bigger umbrella, which is the umbrella of people trying to tell you what to do. Right? People trying to say, hey, I know, I'm your savior. I'm the one. I'm this group. Just do this. Just do that. And usually they're a little bit more educated, more. It is the bourgeoisie game. But anyways, shout out to the super chat. Okay, we're starting off proper. Cichlid in the building, $20 super chat. He is an Android user. I know that is not coming from an iPhone. I happen to know this. Okay, paying my protection money. Definitely pay that protection money indeed. So if this whole elite thing is like, down with the elites and all that kind of stuff, let me ask you this, okay? Some people are better skilled and more experienced than others, right? So far, so good. Would you agree? Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
So, Hill, Sick Lid, everybody in the chat, some people are better skilled, more experienced, more intelligent than others. Perhaps even, you might even say better equipped with such things as, let's say, even wisdom. Okay? We might even go that far. Okay? They might actually have more wisdom than others. Okay? And they might be in a better position to actually handle an individual life, or if they were put in the driver's seat of someone else's life, they might be able to do a better job than the person whom is less skilled, less wise, less intelligent. Correct? Would you agree with me so far?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Okay, then this is the problem, okay? Because a lot of people, because of the problem of elites trying to tell you what to do, they want to kill the whole there is difference between people question, right?
Right.
No, there's still difference, okay? It depends on where we go from here, okay? When we go, here's my proposition. And we'll start playing the video. Don't worry about it. Thomas Sowell is coming soon, okay? We're going to see what he has to say about this whole kind of elite and the people whom say, okay, I know just the way to arrange society in order to get the route outcomes that we are all looking for. I know what your interests are. I know how to get it. Vote for me. I can have the policy measures in here. You just follow my program, follow my ideology. This is the person that is oppressing you. Join me to attack them and you'll be free. All that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
That becomes the problem. It's not the problem that there are actually people that are better at things. That's not the problem. The problem is whenever these people try to do a top-down measure, we get disaster. So far in the chat, are we good? Like we've agreed, okay? We've agreed that, hey, there's some people whom are more skilled, more able to, shall we say, lead a profitable, lucrative, fulfilling life than others. More skilled, more intelligent, perhaps even more wise, more experienced, whatever it may be, right? They got the luck of the draw. They're more talented. They grew up in the right neighborhood with the right parents, okay? That's not the problem, that there's this difference. However, when this group of people try to do a top-down measure to say, I'm going to guide the sheep from a top-down, again, that's the important part, you always get disaster. What do you get? You get communist, you get Maoist China, you get Stalinist, or you get if you pick your favorite dictator, Stalinist Russia, or you get Nazi Germany, right? Whenever this, or you get the whole woke thing, or all these other kinds of people that are out there telling you what it is you need to do. So that is the basic premise here, and we're going to see if we can actually, if that argument holds up. Okay, if the argument holds up, that top down removes responsibility and incentives, that top down does not have the right, top down is never the right approach to solving the problem of the human soul, if you will. Anyways, problem of poverty, problem of criminality, right? These problems, you can never quite go top down. Okay, because look, let me put it this way, and I know I'm going on here, but let me put it this way. It's like if you were that person who knows a little better, who's a little wiser, is a little bit more skilled, has gone through more experiences, and is better able to run things, and you're dealing with your niece whom is going wayward, right? You might be actually able to effect some change, is what I'm saying. Okay. But if you try to then go get the reins of power to take control from people's lives, take control from all your would-be nieces type people, right? The sheep. I'm going to take control from the lives of the sheep to try to do a top-down solution to their problems. It always leads to disaster. Okay?
Always.
So far, that's my claim. I haven't even said why it leads to disaster and, oh, if you try this and if you tweak that. So far, this is how it goes. So therefore, let us begin here and see what Thomas Sowell has to say about this. But before we go there, I believe we have another super chat. Would you mind going ahead and reading the super chat for us, sir?
Hello, everyone.
Taboo Smash in the building. All right. That's $1.99. He's an iPhone user. That I know. Okay. Sick lady is an Android. He's an iPhone user. Anyways, fair use. The origins of woke.
The vision of the anointed. Now that's an interesting title. Who are the anointed?
They're the elite in the media, in politics, all of those who think that third parties ought to be making people's decisions for them.
Let's just go ahead and make sure that we all remember that that's all we've just been saying, right? You have any comments so far? Everything we've been saying about people who think that they are better at making decisions for others just because they are indeed objectively maybe more skilled at X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Like that he is calling them the will of the anointed. He's calling, their program, whatever they may have, as the anointed thing, and that wokeness is just another manifestation of the will of the anointed. So so far we're tracking. Okay.
Yes, we are.
The subtitle is self. Those who think
Anointed.
they're the elite in the media, in politics, all of those who think that third parties ought to be making people's decisions for them. The subtitle is self-congratulation as a basis for social policy. In other words, people who think that everything that's wrong with the country is due to the fact that other people are just not as smart as they are. And if only they could, or people like them could take over and make our decisions, we'd be so much better off.
But in the
let's not poo-poo this thing, okay? Let's challenge ourselves here, okay? People who are listening, okay? Is this not a reasonable thing to think? Is this not what a lot of people do on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, in their dinner parties, or just having dinner with their uncle or whatever it may be, on the phone, chatting with a friend? Is this not what they do? Basically saying, oh my God, everyone else is an idiot, okay?
Yeah.
And maybe not everybody does this, but there's a certain group of people, at least, a certain percentile of the ability, meritocracy, intelligence scale, whatever. Everyone is out there saying the same thing. So before, okay, because it's easy to dismiss that, oh, the anointed ones, oh, they think they're better than everybody. Well, I'm asking you, Aitoa, okay, don't you go around feeling this way? And where does it go too far? Is this a wrong thing to feel right off the bat? Should you always go like, oh, well, I can't do anything. I'm just like everybody. Everyone is like me. Or when does it go too far? Okay, we're just beginning. But
Of course.
What are your thoughts about
I think that the first thing we have to all understand is the moment you have some type of awareness that you've been able to apply or was immediately applicable to you, there is a sense of, I know this and I got to share this. And like you mentioned, we're just starting. This is the end. This is what social media, places like TikTok and Facebook and all these other platforms have allowed just about anyone who has a thought, an idea that they think is superior or they believe to be helpful or useful to just the average person. They create, you can call it an egg nest, if you will, of followers that are ready to be fed from these ideologies that they've come up with. So it's I don't think it's I wouldn't call it right or wrong. I think that what starts to happen is everyone starts thinking that they have the answers. And that's where it becomes messy, because then who do I listen to? Because some folks might say, do this, another folks says, do this, and they're all saying, do this, and this is going to give you this. So I think we each have a responsibility to understand that we have to understand everyone thinks that they're giving you a solution, but not everything that's given to you out there is necessarily designed for you, right? So of course, just to keep the topic in perspective here, I think that it isn't wrong to think that way, but that's the beginning of anyone who's going to take upon a position of leadership, a position of what we call social media influencer. That's the attitude that you have to start your program or your system with.
I see. So here's the deal. The fear of God
is the beginning of knowledge, right?
It's the beginning of all wisdom. Okay. Now, why would that be apt here? Why would that be applicable? I think we see why that is applicable here. Because basically, understanding that, okay, you're thinking about certain kinds of things and you're a human being and you know the way, you have an idea, you have an ideology, you have a persuasion, you tried something at home and you know you can run your life in one particular way and you think, oh, I just can control everybody. We're going to get into why you're a busybody later. We're going to get into why you feel this way, why you feel the need to control others, okay?
Right.
We're going to get into that a little bit later, okay? In other words, why you go overboard. In other words, why it's not wrong to have these ideas, but why do you go overboard? Why do you rush in there? We'll get to that later. But let's continue with this for now. And then we'll get somewhere with it.
Or people like them could take over and make our decisions, we'd be so much better off.
But in early America, didn't this sort of educated class make the decisions for everybody?
As far as governmental decisions,
Yeah.
But the government itself didn't make the decisions for everyone.
Uh-huh.
Now,
there's an interesting point there, which is basically saying it's not a problem of the smart people making decisions for a group. Okay. and someone's just like, whoa. I thought you said that was the problem. Well, that is not the problem. It's not the problem of smart people making decisions for a group. It's the problem of how much power you centralize. Okay. So basically what he said there was, hey, but isn't it always the case that the smart people, the elites, the people whom have this capacity and this, that, or the other, make decisions for groups? And well, he's saying, well, yes, as far as governmental decisions, as far as these big organizational decisions, but we did not have as much power centralized in these organizations, whether it be government or Google or Facebook. So it's not a question of the smart people making the right decisions at the right offices, okay, at the border over there, at the war front, with regards to economic policy, with regards to geopolitical diplomacy, the right people making right decisions. Oh, yeah, sure. But when you centralize the control over people's lives, right, the power, the decisions that otherwise people would have to make, these things that you're saying the sheep don't have the capacity to do because you are better than them. When you take the reins away from them and centralize it in this organization, that's when all hell breaks loose. So I hear Mr. Sowell going down here, but let's have a repeat.
Educated class,
we'd be so much better off.
but in early America, didn't this sort of educated class make the decisions for everybody?
As far as governmental decisions,
Yeah.
but the government itself didn't make the decisions for everyone.
Uh-huh.
Now, you can't decide where your kid's going to school. You can't decide whether or not they can move a halfway house for drug users next door to you or whatnot.
It's out of your control. The government decides.
That's right.
Stuff.
The government decides too many things. They decide also how your children will be raised. You may have an idea about at what age children should be introduced to sex and in what manner, with what kind of moral commitments.
I mean, as a parent,
a parent, yes. The schools have taken that over. By the time you even think about it, they've already had years, of showing.
They're passing out condoms to these kids.
Passing out condoms.
All right. Let's see. Well, next. It sounds like a Simpsons episode or something.
It does. It does. Ken Brockman.
What's going to happen next? But shout out to Technological Chaos, and I'll get to his contribution, which is very, very much appreciated here in a second. But let me just ask you a very quick question. You give a quick answer. Do you think we are outsourcing too much of our power to decentralization, of which, decentralization becomes a problem? Okay. You absolutely think so?
Yes.
In other words, is there something that you feel in your personal life that you're like, these people are taking away my power? Or do you have a personal dog in this fight?
Yeah, I do believe, as a father of 3 boys and in 3 different age groups, I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 5-year-old. You can see how they're interacting with them differently. They're dictating. Just a quick story. My 5-year-old says, Daddy, how many days is 3 days? And I said, what do you mean? He says, my teacher said in 3 days we don't have to wear face masks to school anymore. I says, okay, I believe it was the 14th. So every day I would give him a face mask, and on the 13th, okay, we go to school without a face mask, and he's given one, and I'm thinking, but this is ridiculous. They said on the 14th they don't have to wear face mask anymore, but on the 13th everyone's still masked up. So I'm thinking, okay, what is this? I mean, have we lost our common sense? What if, going back to the statement of course, this is a controversial statement. Some people believe in the vaccinations and all the rules and the mandates that came from the whole pandemic, but all of a sudden it's like, we're not doing Corona no more. It just seems like all of a sudden we don't. So who gets to call the shots? One topic that was looming in the sports organization for a while, at least at the National Basketball Association, Kyrie Irving opted from getting vaccinated, and he received a lot of flack from news reporters, and the New York City said, it's a mandate, and he was not allowed to play home games but can play games on the road. And then the mandate got to a point where he's allowed to sit in the crowd but can't go to the locker room. It was ridiculous. So at some point, who gets to say what's right or wrong? Who gets to say this is it, this isn't it? What if I don't I remember being in the plane. Oh, the lady says, when you take a sip of a drink, you have to lift your face mask, you have to take a bite. Who gets to say that? So do I have a dog in this fight? Absolutely. I think that we all have to be given some type of choice. And because we are choice beings, everything that we do in life is really choice. And the fact that you have a group of people or an entity calling the shots is something I've never been a big fan of.
Very, very, very well put. You're saying, hey, that you do think we are outsourcing a lot of our choices
Absolutely.
to the centralization, and that there are inherent problems with centralization. We already identified it, that when these people whom are right to think, and you listen in this chat, you're one of those people thinking, you know what, I am more capable, I have more experience, I'm more skilled, I am more intelligent, I will be able to run the life of the sheep. But then whenever you get a chance to do it, you and your crew, from time immemorial, okay, you guys always mess it up. And why is it? And we'll get to that, the nature of why that is. But I'm going to shout out to Technological Chaos. I would like to then say that, sir, not only is your $20 from an Android, okay, it's an Android. And by the way, the 99 appears when it's an iPhone. Okay, it's like this would be 1999 if it was an iPhone. Okay, because
Interesting.
Apple takes a cent. I have no idea why, but that's a inside Google super chat YouTube lingo here. Okay, inside baseball there. So interesting point. What Cichlid is saying here, which I'll just go ahead and read first. I'll go ahead and read it first.
Technological chaos, you mean?
Oh yeah, what did I call him?
You call him Siglid. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
this is technological chaos. I got
technological you. My bad. Yeah, I'm horrible with the scene and stuff. But anyways, he's saying basically, let me read the first super chat because I think I got this. I was looking at the second one. He said I would attribute, okay, that paternalistic mentality. Okay, first of all, the paternalistic mentality which we described before, the paternalistic mentality which suggests that you should be in control of people's lives. Why did we get here? The paternalistic mentality of wokeness is what we're trying to describe. We're saying, hey, wokeness, don't need to break your head over it. It's just another form of paternalism. Okay,
right.
No need to argue the points about whether or not this intersectional pressure of oppression it beats the other level. Don't play the oppression Olympics with them. It's a very complicated game. Okay, and just look at it as a part of paternalism, and that this paternalistic mentality of cosmic justice, right? This kind of looking at things from a level of, okay, there should be a centralized. That's what cosmic means. When cosmic or cosmos means the whole, right?
Right.
Anyways, so that kind of cosmic justice, which speaks again of centralization, of godlike type jurisprudence and legislation and control of others, okay? Partially to wanting to hyper optimize. This is where we get to the scientism part of it. Basically, what he's saying is this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Technological Chaos, that there is an attitude of people whom are educated in typical Western materialistic post, shall we say, especially, ever since post-enlightenment, right? Let's just call it that. There's this idea that things can be controlled, knobs can be pushed, things can be optimized. I know the equations. Everything is just like physics. In other words, physics envy is another way to call it. Ever since Isaac Newton came out and said, hey, here are the equations that govern the motions of the galaxies, okay, and also govern the motions of this cannonball and all that kind of stuff, every other discipline, every other would-be corner of knowledge, especially in this case, we're talking about political philosophy and, shall we say, sociology and the study of governance, started wanting to think about everything as some kind of equation that it can control. I could optimize. If I just change a little bit of this particular parameter, I could get this little bit of thing here. So basically, he's saying, again, let me read it. He would attribute this paternalistic mentality of cosmic justice partially to wanting to hyper optimize problem solving, decision making, supply chains, news politics, blah blah blah. In other words, that whole idea. And correct me again if I just went off the rail and created a different movie, Technological Chaos. But am I at least making sense, Aitoa, in terms of what he says?
Yeah, I think that the word here is partially, right. Meaning that they want to, but not explicitly, right? They want to be in control. They want to have the say so. They want to dictate who can sell cakes, who cannot sell cakes, who can you refuse, who can't you refuse, and the longer, if you look at over time, the laws and all of the justice system is evolving quickly to take more control. I mean, look at what Trump tried to do, with social media. He was trying to use his power to bring down the freedom of social media when they, blocked his accounts, things like that. So the justice system is adopting in ways that if we're not paying attention, a lot of what we have as personal freedoms, they really want to take control.
So, and I think that the technological chaos that what I said is correct in a meta way, but also he's emphasizing, I believe, in the second comment, another $20 super chat in the second comment, emphasizing the kind of, well, why don't we just minimize and optimize the people making the decisions as opposed to dealing with all this chaos. Now, the idea of trying to smooth out chaos is one of the big mistakes that we make. Again, when I said the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, what I mean is this, and this is Jordan Peterson's territory, okay? And the feelers are always the best at this. Unfortunately, I don't have that old feeling thing, sounding like I'm about to cry at any given moment, right? But basically, the idea is if you have this knowledge, okay, of how you think you can optimize human beings in terms of their potential, in terms of their fulfillment, living a worthwhile life in different aspects that you can measure that are going to be materially important to them. Let's say their economics, they're able to have freedom, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, whatever it is whatever ways in which you think you can make that better, right? Uh,
If I wanted to add something, I mean, and with regard to his second comment, do
mhm.
you agree that we need one to a few decision makers? Do you agree that we need smaller decision makers? Because doesn't that go back to the same thing as the few, the one, the two, the few, the proud, the the ones that control everything? It goes back to the same thing, right?
Yeah. So I think that okay. Let me start pointing out some abstractions here about the actual problem with centralization.
Okay.
Okay, because we've said from one end in terms of our emotional ends why we want to take control of people's lives, right? And then we looked at it from a very industrial, mathematical, scientific, hey, why don't I just optimize it and have only few people control everyone's lives, right? So there are many pressures and incentives pushing things towards centralization in a certain way,
Right.
right?
Right.
When humans get involved, we want to smooth things out. We want to create straight lines. Nature is too jagged and complicated, and chaos want to smooth things out. Okay, cool. But here's the problem with optimization. The problem with optimization, with centralization,
Centralization.
is that it does not have the local knowledge in a high resolution that is required to solve problems. Because in a large scale, okay, let's say there's poverty, okay, there's still high resolution important information about the poverty in your neighborhood, and the right person, whom is a trusted person, to be able to effect change in that neighborhood that everybody knows, versus what a bureaucrat from on high trying to legislate this thing for a whole nation as to the, shall we say, the what is going to be the deployment of the resources, and how do we get the money into the hands, and what are the right institutions, and how much should we give to this institution versus this institution. That requires high resolution. Okay, everybody knows what resolution is, right? Just think
Right.
of zooming in into that particular neighborhood, and there's so much detail in each of these localities
Right.
that
Taking a
there is
granular
no
approach.
way you can take advantage of it. There is no way you can do it. Okay,
Right.
what I'm saying is this: just like marketplaces, right? Where you want something, you know what you're going to pay for it. You know what $20 is worth for you today. Is this $20 worth more than that? Do you need this thing more than you only need your $20? That kind of thing. Prices are also this decentralized signal, whereby if somebody came in and tried to say, I'm going to set the price for X, we all know the economic theory. We all understand why this is not possible. You don't have enough knowledge to know what the price of wood is that makes that pencil, or the lead, which is not really lead, in the middle of the graphite, in the middle of the pencil, or the rubber parts for the eraser. That has to do with what somebody somewhere is willing to pay for somebody to chop down some wood, and what somebody somewhere is willing to pay to ship some of this graphite from this ground somewhere. In other
Right.
words, again, let me repeat in one short sentence: the problem with centralization is that it cannot account for the high resolution local factors that are necessary for the solving of problems. Even these broad scale problems have local contents that are very important. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Do you think that in the concept of centralizing these things, that it could be, you can say, let's optimize the opportunity, let's optimize our approach to cater to that high resolution view of the locals? Do you think that's ever possible?
So you're talking about a meeting together of the two. Say, okay, so
Right,
now
yeah.
we've recognized. So
Right.
here is another reason why. Let me put it this way to you. So now that you're going down that path, let's get to the how. Okay. In other words,
Okay.
I've explained a why that you've partially bought for the sake of argument. You say, okay, there is something about trying to do things top down that just can never get the resolution required, no, even if you have a quantum computer. Okay.
Right.
There is no kind of, oh, I'm going to create a communist utopia because I have quantum computing and I can compute just the right allocation of all resources. No, just too much. No, you have to let the natural process play out to be the quantum computing in itself, this price game. And I know it's rigged and this, that, the other. This is not a question about that. It's not a question about, who has power and who has guns and stuff like that. This is about centralization. But since we're talking about the how, okay, here's the thing about centralization, okay? It allows, or decentralization. It allows for many experiments to take place. What do I mean by that? It means that if you have a central head, for example, like your one decision, or shall we take technological chaos as example, 3 decision makers, okay? Or you have one communist party. All I got to do is chop off one head, right?
Right.
It makes you very efficient, okay? But there is a trade-off, and this is a good trade-off for everybody to remember, okay? There's a trade-off between efficiency and longevity. If you focus and become efficient and become narrow, you don't last. If you are a jack of many trades, you tend to last.
There's longevity. So it's a trade-off.
There's a trade-off. You got to know how much you're playing this dance. Like, oh, I could just cut off all these things and be just super slick and efficient. And when that market goes away, then you're gone, right? Or when this particular person cuts off that head, you're gone. So the idea is this. You need, if you're the central planner, to allow many different experiments and many different hubs and many different things to be happening at the same time. You cannot centralize because, number one, you're going to get the advantages of experimentation. Remember we talked about when we were looking at Jordan Belfort's The Wolf of Wall Street's video, talking about keep your overhead low so that you can do the experimentation thing. So this is basically what this is also doing. So let's say you have decentralization in terms of states, and different states are allowed to have different laws, and let's see what happens, right? Different people are allowed to trade and barter and do what they want in entrepreneurship, and let's see what happens, okay? That's the idea here. So if you're trying to incentivize something, what you want to do is create a multi-headed hydra that is able to test things. This is the natural way. In other words, ecologies do this. Evolution does this. You can watch in a petri dish, generation after generation of viruses adapt to the environment by living and dying in many numbers. Those are the experiments, okay?
Right.
They're trying it out. What works is that. If you try to centrally plan what the virus should do and be and how it's not going to work. That's the same idea. Just one more repetition, and we got to go back to the video, by the way.
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
Just one more repetition of the point, basically, that top down, I didn't say this one before, but it removes responsibility from the person, right, from the sheep. When you remove responsibility from the sheep, you remove incentives from the sheep to be able to actually do stuff, because they're actually human beings and have a nature too. We haven't talked about their nature yet, but just as an abstract reality, top down does not have the high resolution, and top down is fragile because it does not allow for the multi-headed hydra experimentation, blah, blah, blah thing, which you just described, to happen. It's therefore not robust. Okay. So, and if you wanted to mimic this robust situation, which solves problems because it has the high resolution and stuff like that, has many little bubbles as opposed to one big wave, for those of you who have visual kind of imaginations, right? If you're trying to, then you have to mimic the many little bubbles thing. Okay.
That's right.
That's the idea. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, let us continue. Again, we're talking about the woke ideology. Okay. What is the woke ideology? What is the woke narrative? It basically says that groups are fighting for power. That's what political, social, economic life is all about. It's not about, shall we say, meritocracy or values or competence in getting something done. No, it's just about a particular group having power. And this power then creates language, norms, systems, institutions, mores, and whatnot that keep that particular group in power and oppress you. And then I will come in and now say, hey, you, okay, do what I say, okay, Follow my politically correct program, and I will save you from that which oppresses you, which may be, in this case, white, heterosexual, male, patriarchy, phallogocentric, whatever you may want to call it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's continue.
Is not even the half of it. They're showing motion pictures of naked couples engaging in sex, both homosexual and heterosexual, in the 7th grade. And if you complain about it, that's considered to be censorship.
You can't pull your kid out of school and say they don't have to put up with this stuff. I guess you could,
No.
but you'd be
Well, if you have a private school to put them in, but you have compulsory attendance laws, and if you don't have the money for private schools, then you're stuck.
Where did this country get off the track and decide that the federal government should make most of our decisions?
Well, it started to some extent in the New Deal, but I think the 1960s is sort of the golden age, if you want to put it that way, of this whole mindset. And that's what the book's about. It's about a mindset. It's not about a series of policies, but of showing how in policy after policy, those who think a certain way will try to take over other people's decisions.
How do you characterize the liberal philosophy today from the conservative philosophy?
Hold on a second. I would like to hear how he said that we got to this point, from the game theoretic thing I think he just said.
It's about a mindset. It's not about a series of policies, but of showing how in policy after policy, those who think a certain way will try to take over other people's decisions.
Wow.
It is. What did you hear there? Go ahead.
Well, no, I think what he said is it doesn't come out obvious. It's not this is what's going to happen. But those mindsets come in, they start to feel like they're the dominant thought. We know what's best for you. We are it, and our mindset and our ideologies are superior or supreme, and are going to indirectly saying it's better than whatever you have, and that's it right there. That's where I think the essence of what he's saying is that whoever gets to that position starts to dictate, and slowly that mindset takes over, and in some degrees, in some way, shape, or form, becomes law. Right? It becomes what we must do. We gave the example about the sex education. That what if I want to show them myself at the age of maybe 17, or maybe I wanted to do it my own way. Maybe I wanted to use characters, right? Maybe I want to use my illustrations, but those ideologies have become law, the way, the curriculum, how it should be done. And I think he does he breaks it down. I think he does a pretty good job at breaking it down for us to, like we say here, we like to bring things to a granular point, right? And I think he does that.
So the ideology that presupposes that it knows better tends to start gaining weight in social situations.
That's right.
We can imagine this in terms of, let's say you have a group of friends or whatever it may be. Maybe think about a group project that you did in college. Okay. If you are the kind of person who just maybe thinks neutral, like, okay, well, I don't really think that I would want to control what people do or whatever. C'est la vie, comme si, whatever it is you want to say, live and let live. Okay. You tend to acquiesce. Is it not true? You tend to give in psychologically,
right,
to the group that is more like, what? I think we know the way. And
power
then you
in
may
numbers,
just be
they
like,
call it.
What?
I said that power in numbers, right?
Power in numbers. And there's something called there are many things that are phrased as the Byzantine general problem. The Byzantine general problem is also part of what the Bitcoin, of what the Satoshi Nakamoto Satoshi paper solves, the Bitcoin paper, right? But basically, another way to describe the Byzantine general problem, or a Byzantine general problem, is that problem whereby you don't know who the cop is, you don't know who the narc is. Like, let's say, for example, we're all following this politically correct formula in the HR department of this company, and you're thinking like, why are we all following this? Who's the person who really believes in this thing? And nobody really knows, and nobody wants to raise a stink. You don't know if it's this person or if it's that person, or you just know everyone says yes, everybody votes aye, everyone signs a diversity and inclusion statement and pledges to it, or whatever it is. Okay,
right.
Salutes whatever flag, and no one really knows whom the narc is, whom the undercover cop is, who the boogeyman is. So the point being, there doesn't have to be a boogeyman there. Even there are many monkey type experiments with this, right, where people follow rules, and the person who started the rule is not even there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
we're pleasing ancestors.
They just keep on all those kinds of things, right?
Right.
So I just wanted to add those facts there, that we tend to acquiesce to those people who think that they actually know better. And have that kind of idea. And the people who think they know better implement certain kinds of policies, right? It's a part of their personality. And that's how you then end up with these policies being there, because of human kinds of behavior. And I think one of the ways, or there is a book called The Road to Serfdom by Friedrich von Hayek, which is just what it is, the road to serfdom. Like, how do you all become slaves? Right? Like, and it describes it in very game theoretic ways like this, like, well, because people do this, and then this happens, and then people would then do this, and then this happens.
It happens,
And next thing you know, you're in Nazi Germany.
How do you characterize the liberal philosophy today from the conservative philosophy?
Oh, that's a tough one. I guess the main thing about the liberals, again, is that they think a program will do it. If there's something that they don't like in the society, you have set up a program and that will solve the problem. I think one of the things that one of the words they use a lot is solutions. And I argue here and elsewhere that there are no solutions. There are just trade-offs. So, for example, when Ralph Nader launched his attack against the Corvair many years ago, he said it's an unsafe car and it has these safety problems and those safety problems. And in some respects, he was correct.
I got to repeat one of these. This is one of his famous statements. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. That's one thing to remember. It's just like we just talked about the trade-off between efficiency, right? And this is not like some kind of thing you could solve, right? You can't be maximally efficient and also maximally robust and long. No. It's not physically possible. It doesn't work. Anyways, yeah, let's continue. So I want to replay something that he's known for, which is that there are no solutions, only trade-offs.
That's right.
Problem. I think one of the things that one of the words they use a lot is solutions. And I argue here and elsewhere that there are no solutions. There are just trade-offs. So, for example, when Ralph Nader launched his attack against the Corvair many years ago, he said it's an unsafe car and it has these safety problems and those safety problems. And in some respects, he was correct, not all. But the fact is, there were other things that a Corvair would do that made it safer than other cars. And on net balance, it was as safe as the rest of them.
So another thing about trade-off is this, to put it in a different form, other than just the form of, okay, there is no free lunch in the universe. That's one way of kind of putting the rule right there, right?
Right.
But another form is to see that, look, we make trade-offs in terms of even safety of cars, right? Okay. If we wanted to have 0 deaths on the road, we could do it. Okay. It will slow things down a little bit and it'll cost a whole lot of money.
Yes.
Okay. And no one will ever die on the road again. Well, you, me, and everybody, here's what we do. We say, we'll kill a few of them off. Okay. You gotta go. Sounds like another Simpson episode. We'll kill a few of them off because, hey, I gotta get to work on time, and I can't spend $1 billion because this is what we do. This is the nature of reality. This is the nature of trade-offs. Some of them are just kind of baked in the pie that we don't even think about them anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
But we have decided to sacrifice some people, literally decided that we're going to sacrifice these people on the altar of getting to work on time. Anyways, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, just for everyone who drives, the surge in gas prices is nothing new. And on and on, everywhere you go, whether it's on the news, social media, you see a lot of people, revealing their frustrations or what they're calling pain at the pump. And as someone who drives an EV, I can't say that I relate to the pain at the pump, but I will tell you that there are trade-offs with an EV. Tomorrow I'll be traveling up north, and when I calculated from a GPS, it's about 6 hours and 45 minutes. When I calculated from my EV, it's almost 8 hours. So I have to spend additional hour and a half getting off my route to charge. So the EV isn't really a solution against gas prices. There is a trade-off. So I find myself, I have to stop to charge. And for those who have an EV, there is something called rage anxiety. You're driving somewhere and it tells you you're going to get there with 9-10%. And you're worried. And if with all that power on the accelerator, you realize that you got to be a lot more conservative because you need to save your battery. So, he speaks gospel truth that there are no solutions. It's just trade-off. So when I was getting an EV, is all right, what am I going to give up? I'm going to give up not going to the gas. Okay, gas station, got it. But I've used, I don't know, I'm sure everyone's seen that joke. Well, I'm going to get gas in the morning. Well, you can't do that with an EV. You're not waking up in the morning to charge a car. It's not going to happen. So he's right. There are no trade-offs. There are no solutions. They're just trade-offs.
Indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Let us continue. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you're coming in and have not subscribed to the channel, okay, please go ahead and do so. Click the subscribe button, hit the bell button twice, okay? Like the video, share the video. Let's continue.
You saying there are no solutions to our problems as Americans?
There are no solutions to anybody's problem. There are trade-offs. Safety is a classic example. Every year, so many hundreds of thousands of people are vaccinated against measles, smallpox, those kinds of things. Now, this saves several hundred lives, it's estimated. It also causes brain damage to about 30 kids a year. Now, there are no solutions in that. There are just trade-offs.
What about crime? Take crime as an issue. Can we solve the crime issue or fundamentally solve it so it's reduced?
Well, then that's a trade-off. You don't solve it. There will always be crime. There always has been. But you want to keep it down to some level. It's not this astronomical thing we have today. For example, the liberals right now are saying, crime has eased off in New York, and that's true. There were 6 times as much crime in New York a few years ago as there was in 1960. Now it's down to 5 times as much crime as there was in 1960. Now that's not what I regard as a great trend, unless it continues a lot more strongly.
Well, liberals think we need more education and we need to help people in the inner city more to cut down crime there. Conservatives would say we have to be tougher on crime. Is either of them correct?
Oh, I no. You see, the conservative view is really not a solution. It's a trade-off. It says, yes, it would be wonderful if we could do all these things to prevent crime in the first place. We just don't happen to be that smart. And so what we do, we put people behind bars who commit violent crimes. Now, a few years ago in East Palo Alto, which is not far from Stanford University, minority community, low income, they had the doubtful distinction of being the murder capital of the United States in proportion to their population. The next year, murder and all sorts of other violent crimes dropped tremendous amount, 30, 40, 50% in 1 year. Now, that wasn't because they discovered the root causes of crime or because they worked out everything that was wonderful. They launched a campaign that put a lot of the bad guys behind bars. And when they were behind bars, they didn't commit as many crimes.
Okay, so there's something about the emotion of wanting to solve a problem or wanting to solve it in a particular way. I'm going to talk to you since we were talking about energy, and he inadvertently just kind of continued on not inadvertently, that's where he was going, but we didn't know where he was going. He continued on the solutions and trade-off thing. But I want to talk more about this energy question. The obvious one is, well, the gas, the coal that makes the electricity, right? The coal that makes the electricity for your EV, right? And if your EV deal is about lower carbon footprint, that you're not really doing that. But forget that one, right? There's something about nuclear energy that I want to ask what you feel about. Are you one of those that has an averse reaction to nuclear energy, right? If I said, hey, you know what? We can clean up the whole electricity game if we have this next generation nuclear thing. Look up Bill Gates' site. Okay, there's advances that have been made. This is not 1960 anymore, that kind of thing. Or do you, based on this idea of, look, there are no solutions, man. We can get cleaner nuclear, and here are the trade-offs for the nuclear. Check out my nuclear. Some people have the idea of, oh, no, never nuclear. What are your thoughts about nuclear energy in general? Are you muted or is this just me?
You know what? I'm muted. You're right.
Okay,
I
go ahead.
was muted. So the question, the technological chaos asked, not to mention if extremely cold weather power deficiencies declines by a lot for using electric batteries. You are correct. What happens during the summer, again, the trade-off happens during the summer. I have solar in my house. I get plenty of extra energy. Yes, you get more charging and your power efficiency goes up. But then the trade-off comes in. Now you have to use the air more. You have to run, because on an EV, as you drive, you're running everything. You're running everything off the battery. Your air conditioning, even the volume of the the music. That's why in my EV, as soon as I open the door, the volume goes down. and as soon as you shut the door, everything goes off because it's always constantly trying to preserve energy. So it's a constant trade-off. But to your question, I think when what we have to do is re-educate the community to re-educate society. I think the word nuclear has got a bad name, right? As soon as folks hear nuclear, they think, oh, something's going to blow up, something's bigger than us, right? But I think the goal with what Bill Gates is doing and some of the readings that I've done, it's just like anything else. When you bring in new ideologies, new concepts, we often get uncomfortable. We're not sure what it means, and then we have people that are benefiting from the absence of those new infrastructures, or maybe potentially feel threatened by those new infrastructures that will prefer to keep it quiet. Because if you look at the history of EVs for a while, the EV story was a joke. I encourage everyone to look up the story of Tesla. When Elon Musk started, he was taking loans, and everyone thought, "You're crazy. No one's gonna care." And let's fast forward 2000, we're almost exactly 10 years. And today he's one of the mecca, if you will. He's everyone's looking up to him. Yes, there is a trade-off. There are articles out there talk about how damaging it is and to Mother Earth, how the batteries for EVs are being created and developed. But again, that's a trade-off. Like you said, a few people will die, a few chemicals will go out there. But then the other side says, what about those gas vehicles, all the carbon monoxide going in the atmosphere? What about the pollution from the regular gas cars? They're not as bad. So that fight goes on. But what are my thoughts? I think that we have seen everything over time get better, increase in efficiency, increase in performance. If you look at some of the early EVs, the miles per charge has gotten better over time. I'll get occasionally software updates that my battery performance gets better. They introduce some software advances on the computer that minimize or maximize performance, and they have options. You can put long range, you can do different things. So I think that as over time, I think it's going to be more accepted. At the beginning, we're scared. And I say scared because fear is really what holds us back, right? But there is a fear, there is a misunderstanding. No one understands, how is this going to work? How is this going to affect this business? How does the oil industry, how do they feel about this? So a lot of things go into that.
Well, let's see. In other words, something you said a marketing problem. Okay, so I'm saying I'm characterizing part of what you said as there's a branding problem with the word nuclear. Maybe we need to rebrand nuclear and have it associated with ice cream, sugar, and spice,
Cakes.
whatever it may be. Okay, but there's something else which is going on, which we've talked about, which you alluded to, which is fear, and we also mentioned that people may not necessarily know the reasons why they are doing what they're doing or afraid of what they're afraid of. Right? Okay. I'm going to play a quick 1 minute video here, 1 minute, 20 seconds, and we'll all laugh and be like, oh, yeah, that's what's going on, right?
A scientist placed 4 monkeys in a room with a stepladder upon which there was a bunch of bananas. Whenever a monkey went to climb the ladder, the other monkeys in the room were sprayed with cold water. After a while, each time a monkey went for the bananas, the others would attack it to prevent it from doing so. The monkeys learnt to never climb the ladder. But then,
obviously, the banana is nuclear weapons, right? Or nuclear energy, right? So, Chernobyl happened. One bad thing happened one time, right? Okay.
Right.
One of the monkeys was removed, and a new monkey wearing a raincoat was introduced. Naturally.
So there's this new monkey, okay? He never experienced Chernobyl, never experienced nuclear meltdown, right? And he's like, oh, I think there's new ways of, anyways.
This monkey went for the bananas, and it was customarily attacked and prevented from doing so by the others. This new monkey learnt not to climb the ladder. So when another monkey was substituted in and made for the bananas, all the others attacked it, including the one in the raincoat, despite the fact that it had never been sprayed with cold water. A third monkey was substituted in, and then a fourth final monkey. And still, whenever a monkey tried...
This is the pattern. We need not dwell on it too much, right? But this is the pattern, right? There are things that we say, don't go there, don't touch that, don't do this.
Right.
And we don't even know why. We weren't there. We don't understand the complexity of the situation. We don't know why that rain happened that time with the ladder. And let me try and share something real quick in terms of Bill Gates and nuclear, because I think it's something that we should all look into a little bit. Okay, because the idea that nuclear means unsafe, nuclear means it is going to blow up, nuclear means the waste and radiation and fishes with legs and all kinds of all that crazy stuff. I think that let me see, share this instead, and then let me know if you hear the audio, sir. I'm going to share something and let me know if you hear the audio.
There is no audio.
Yeah, that is interesting how it does that. So, anyways, just a little StreamYard back thing here, but I'll share it again, ladies and gentlemen. Again, the woke ideology. The ideology basically is couched within the elite mindset that says that it knows better what to do for you. But the elite mindset has the problems of centralization. The problems of centralization are such that it doesn't have the resolution to be able to actually solve problems, the local resolution that is required. Also, it takes away incentives from the people on the ground to do the things that they need to do from that, shall we say, save salvation of my soul and standpoint, right? It takes away their human dignity as well, okay, amongst other things. But then we went into this idea of, look, there are things that we don't understand, that the world is filled with trade-offs, and we think that we're going to cancel out certain avenues because they're not the perfect utopian solution. And then now we're looking at nuclear because of that. Just in case we were wondering how we ended up here.
Get there?
So let's see. Can we hear the audio now?
I'm happy to be with you on this exciting day for our company and for the future of energy. 15 years ago, I assembled a group of experts to explore the technologies necessary to solve the dual challenges of global energy poverty and climate change. It became clear that an essential tool to solving both is advanced nuclear power. Nuclear power is the only carbon-free energy source we have that can deliver large amounts of power day and night through every season, almost anywhere on Earth. And it's been proven to work on a large scale. It's really fantastic, combining the best attributes of other types of energy production. But nuclear power, like every other technology, needs to innovate and adapt. It needs to become less expensive. It needs to prove an even stronger safety case.
And this is always true, right? Whether it be VHS or whether it be DVDs or whether it be any kinds of new technology, whether it be the internet.
Netflix.
The internet was clunky. It was crazy. Netflix, mailing DVDs, right? Netflix back in the day. It's kind of interesting. Like when Netflix just came, I was one of the first. I remember getting like this samurai anime thing because they were the only ones that had it. Right? I was looking online and was like, and then they would mail it to me. You would mail it back. Right? I was like from day one, Netflix dude here. But anyways, the idea that these things then become more efficient, right? Well, because think about it this way. There's one simple way to think about that whole thing of why do DVDs become cheaper? Okay. Why does technology become cheaper over time? Okay. We know that it is a fact. Someone is rolling their eyes right now saying, yeah, I know, that's just one of those truisms we know out there. It is true. Yes, things come out, they're expensive, and then they get cheaper. But amongst several factors that contribute to this, one basic one is this. When you make your first widget, I don't know what it is, you make this first widget, you don't really, there's a lot of inefficiency, right?
Right.
When you make widget number 1,000, you've got it dialed down. Okay, you know just exactly how much aluminum, how many hours goes into it, how many BTUs of heat goes here, and you know how to arrange it. You remove all the friction from the way. That's a big aspect. When you first make the first thing, it's always more expensive. When you mass produce, in other words, the idea that the cost of something goes down is tied to the fact that it also has to be mass produced. That's the main thing there. You got to make a lot of it. Anyways, let us continue talking about nuclear energy here and how you need to rethink and maybe needs a facelift, a new branding.
Natrium is designed to make a dramatic change in performance, safety, and cost. We think Natrium will be a game changer for the energy industry, and we're proud to partner with Pacific Corp, Governor Gordon, Senators Barrasso and Loomis, Congresswoman Cheney, and Secretary Granholm to build our reactor in Wyoming. Wyoming has been a leader in energy for over a century, and we hope that our investment in Natrium will allow Wyoming to stay in the lead for many decades to come.
By the way, what he just did there is an example of, okay, and we're not going to get into the bog down into the why nuclear energy is now better, but just think about it. Hey, it's been a long time since those disasters happened. Obviously, we know better now. There are better ways of doing it, so look into it. And what he just demonstrated there is that whole thing about different laboratories. So this particular state, Wyoming, says, I'm going to go in, right? And other states can chill. But if you had a centralized way of doing things, it's either 0 or 1. It's either we're all doing nuclear or no one's doing nuclear. But if you have a decentralized system, you can have experiments. That's the whole idea. The ecosystem is decentralized. And by the way, I don't want to drag things down to a particular level, okay? But that is the same way that your muscles work, in the sense that they go they go out there, and some of them have to, they feel the stress, right? When you're exercising, is basically what I'm saying, okay? They feel the stress of the exercise, right? And the ones that fail and die give information to the other ones, right? Oh, like, hey, we need to be rebuilt stronger. Right. We need to be able to handle 25 weight dumbbells, okay? And then when you get to 25 and then you go to 40 and some then die in this, okay, then they're like, okay, cool, we need to rearrange. So evolution, your muscles, your brains, all these things work on the same principle of, it takes many is robust, many gets you information, many solves the computer problem. You try to centralize it and compute everything and distribute everything, obviously that's an issue. And shout out to Technological Chaos again for kind of putting our mind to that idea of scientism, the idea of enlightenment, the idea that, hey, I know what is correct. For example, we want to solve, hey, shout out to Jesus Christ. He said the poor will always be with us. Shout out to the Pareto principle. Shout out to that saying that, for those who have more shall be given to them, and for those who do not have them, the little that they do have will be taken away from them. Okay? We keep seeing these things over and over again, but we were like, but I can fix it. Hold on.
That can never be solved.
They worked out everything that was wonderful. They launched a campaign that put a lot of the bad guys behind bars. And when they were behind bars, they didn't commit as many crimes.
Makes sense to me.
And the thing that even in a high crime area, the great majority of the people are not criminals. And so if you can just put your hands on those people who are raising all the hell in the community and take them out of circulation, the crime rate drops.
People say there's undue emphasis on African Americans for committing crimes. Is that true? Ed Koch wrote in a column here that the population is 25% African American in New York. 62% of the crimes are committed by African Americans. Is that and he says
I haven't checked these figures, but yeah, throughout the world, this is not unusual. Throughout the world, people are disproportionately represented in all kinds of different things. And it's true, obviously, in basketball. It's true in all kinds of other things. The main thing is not to keep people out of jail because they're one race or another, because when you do that, the people who are going to suffer the most will be the Black community.
Where are you on affirmative action?
Against.
There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs, right? So if you find a particular population being overrepresented in one area, which you will, basketball, for example, you're going to find African Americans overrepresented in basketball. You're going to find 2 tribes in Kenya, and it's not just all Kenyans. There are these hills where all the marathon people come from, okay? So you're going to be overrepresented there. But hey, guess what? When you find, let's say, there's a tribe, maybe it's the Irish in one particular time, in one particular city. Maybe it's the Italians in one particular time, in one particular city. Or maybe it's the African Americans in one time, in one particular city, that is overrepresented in crime, okay? The idea is, first of all, not to be shocked that, oh my God, why is, because hey, stuff happens, okay? For many complex reasons. And then also, the idea is not to say, okay, cool, let's not put them in jail as much. Let's send them back into the community, terrorize their own people. And it's a tricky thing, because people emotionally want to say, it seems like we're locking up too many people that look like this,
right.
And that's a problem. But what do? You send them back into the neighborhoods to commit havoc. And this is not about the numbers per se, because the number, obviously this is from the 90s, the numbers of these things sway, but the idea is this: disparities and overrepresentation, if you will, amongst groups in extreme behavior. And I want to make sure I make this point very clear. Extreme behavior. In other words, there are many Filipinos that can beat many Kenyans in marathons. But when you go to the tail end of the marathon distribution, you're only going to find Kenyans there. There are many women that are more aggressive and violent than many men. But when you go to the tail end of aggressiveness, it's all men there, right?
Right.
This is what the concept of overlapping distributions. I don't have my visual to kind of see it, but we know about distributions, right?
Right.
We know
The
about
curve.
a bell curve, right?
Right.
The normal distribution is the bell curve has a particular shape, but most curves are that kind of way. So overlapping distribution means most of the people in the middle of like, oh, let's take this population and its distribution, and let's take another population and its distribution. Most of the people in the middle overlap. Let's say if we're talking about aggressiveness between male population and female population. The average is different, and the tails are different. But things we are most concerned about extreme behavior. That's why we get into this issue of like, does it mean all black people are this way or white people this way or all women are this way and not all, that whole not all thing. Oh, but some people, but not all this person. And we get confused because we don't imagine distributions. We start looking at individual people. It's like, no, stop thinking of that. If I were to give you any gift today, whenever you hear any statistics, think of a distribution and think of another distribution next to it. And that the peak, the means vary a little bit. Okay. And hence the tails will kind of vary with only, when you look at the tails, only one side will be there. The other graph
the other
is
side,
empty,
exactly.
right? So that's what it means. It doesn't, but when you're focused only on the extreme behaviors like violence and those kind of things, you're gonna see one type of person.
Yeah, you get misled.
So don't get your feelings get involved by, but these types of people and that kind of thing. Anyways, I think maybe that was an over digression there, but we're gonna be landing the plane soon. So let's continue with this topic here. Thomas Sowell, shout out.
Why?
Well, you can only do one of two things. You can either just judge people individually, or you can judge them by groups. This whole notion that you're going to come up with a compromise, I would defy anybody to come up with a compromise on that. You're going to do one of those two things. Now, you can pretend to be doing other things, but that's all you're going to do. Those are the only two choices you really have in the end. Again, the people who are the anointed think of this as a symbolic issue, and they want to be on the side of the angels. They don't ask, what are the consequences? Now, I've studied affirmative action programs around the world. One of the consequences is that those people who are more fortunate in the group that has the preferences, those people take the lion's share of the preferences. Very often, those at the other end of the scale, poorer people, actually fall further behind. That's true of Black share. It's true of Malays in Malaysia. It's true of various groups in India. And there are reasons for that. You can say you must have a certain proportion. Nothing is easier than for an employer who might otherwise locate, let's say, in the Bronx, to locate out in Provo, Utah, where he will be not near any Black people, and therefore he will never have lawsuits, and the jobs will be in Provo, and people wonder, why don't people here have more jobs? It never seems to occur to liberals that other people are not blocks of wood, that when you set up certain incentives, they will.
Okay. Here's the thing, you're a man of business. You're a man of incentives and moves and going out into marketplaces and watching price signals and acting accordingly, such that, hey, if somebody tells you, hey, you need to do this, 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 and this in order to operate within my jurisdiction, you may wonder, are there other jurisdictions where I don't have to do that, right? And in other words, do you have to be an evil, crazy person? You have to be an evil genius. You have to have a cabal of a group where you business owners, go to some club together about how you're going to try to, shall we say, take advantage of loopholes or move around based on incentive structures that are out there. You don't have to be a horrible, you people just, whatever rules you put out there, hey, employers have to do this. Employers will just maneuver around it. Okay. This is another reason why that top-down thing doesn't work. We've already mentioned a couple of things why the top-down doesn't work. We've talked about the fact that decentralization doesn't have the high resolution. Decentralization doesn't have the experimental thing that we described, right? And we talk about decentralization also does not give the incentive to the people, but also centralization also makes it acts as though what it does is there's not going to be any reaction to what it does. Like, I'm just going to do this and people are not going to do anything about it. Like, they're just going to act the way I think they're going to act. It's like, no, they will change their behavior. They will go to another state. They will stop hiring. For example, if you just raise the minimum wage, what you're actually doing is you're hurting the people. You're doing many things. You're helping
everything else goes up accordingly.
Number one, a trade-off is prices go up. That's one trade-off. But another trade-off is this. If I'm an employer and I can pay somebody $3 an hour, let's say they're 15 years old or something, and I call up my cousin or my niece and I'm like, hey, you're in summer school, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're not doing summer school, but you want to work, right? and I'm able to hire them legally and pay them $3 an hour, I will do that. I know they're not, because they're not really worth $10 or $15 or $20 an hour. Let me train them. Let me spend some time with them, right? But if you raise the price, the minimum wage, to $20 an hour, you just screwed my cousin out of a job. Because I'm not going to hire my cousin. I'm going to go for a Mexican immigrant that has years of experience, right? And I'm going to bring in him to my fast food shop, let's say, or to my little apprentice salon, whatever it may be, my saloon, my shop, my foundry, whatever it may be, okay? These are the trade-offs you make. And you understand this as an employer, right? If I tell you, you now have to pay your help, anybody you get, you have to pay them $25 an hour, you're just going to go get people who already have the skill. In other words, the people below are going to get hurt by the people. You're trying to help the people below, but then you raise the minimum wage thinking you're helping the people below.
Okay, you're cutting off the middle class.
You're cutting off the first rung on the ladder into the employment is what you're doing. That's right. You're like, my cousin say, hey, I'm good for like $3 an hour. Okay. I got to learn. Okay. And then for the next like 3 months, I'll probably graduate. If I prove my skill, I'll learn this, I'll do that. Cool. There's a $3 an hour rung I can climb up. But you remove the $3 an hour rung when you say, hey, you got to pay everybody $20. I'm not going to give. And there are many people who are only worth $3 an hour. Okay. That's not a bad thing, but they have to learn. They have to gain the experience, all those kinds of things. Right. But anyways, that's just a point about that whole, I don't know if you've ever encountered that situation where you had to be like, hey, you know what? Well, anyways, go ahead. Any comments?
No, yeah. The one I experienced is the State Bar of California for the law school. They were trying to set some rules on compensation for instructors. And it just pretty much what it forced us to do is to say, well, instead of trying to hire, because we went the opposite direction, instead of trying to go out there and look for the cream of the crop instructors, we decided to take a different approach. We started looking for students who just finished the JD program, students just fresh out of high school that feel like they're ready to teach. And we started offering them positions instead because we knew that they're not registered by the State Bar. There is no regulation following them. So like someone mentioned on the chat, you can call it a loophole. But in other instances, when we were faced with that similar situation, we instead of paying the person full time, you say, well, since the minimum wage has gone up, I can only pay you part time, right? I can maybe come in 4 days, maybe work from 9 to 2. So we find a way, because when those prices go up, businesses, their profits don't exactly immediately, jump up as well. Profit takes time. So, whatever the difference is we have to pay in compensation for employees, they don't come automatically. They don't come as a result of the prices, minimum wage coming up. So we have some ground to make up. So like we talked about a week or two ago, then we scale back a little bit. So we allow the monies or our reserves to increase a little bit, and then we go back to potentially matching what's requested or required of us depending on the situation.
Indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, let's continue here. Thomas Sowell
will react to them in certain ways, and when they do that, the result may be the opposite of what you set out to do.
How do the anointed refer to people they don't agree with?
All sorts of ways, but I think the main thing is they believe that you're not merely in error but in sin. In other words, they can't believe that you're just mistaken. You must have sold out. You must be something warped about you.
You guys are for the rich. You guys only care about the rich guys. Answer that. How do you respond? Liberal says conservatives only care about rich people.
Well, one of the things I go into in the book is that the whole notion of rich is ridiculous. That most Americans don't stay in the same income bracket, even for 1 decade. So the same guy who is, quote, rich now was 20 years ago probably in the bottom 20%. I mean, I was on a cruise recently, luxury cruise, and the guy said, if somebody told me when I was growing up that I would end up on a cruise like this, I would have said, get real, man. That very few people are in that same income bracket the whole time. Right. The genuinely rich and the genuinely poor, I would estimate to be no more than 3% of the American people.
Really?
Put together.
That's not very surprising, by the way. We know how concentrated wealth is, right? It doesn't take a lot of people to, all you need is a few families to hold that money, right? We know how concentrated wealth is, right?
Rockefeller,
the billions and the billions. It's like only many people, right? So it's not like the rich. It's like, no, there's like very few of them. And the idea of mobility, upward and downward, by the way, is the fact. I think I mentioned before the it's not the S&P 500, the Fortune 500 companies and the turnover
Right.
in
We
these
talked about
companies.
that last week. I think we did. Yeah.
Yes, and then people rising and going up to, I think, as a surprisingly high percentage of Americans spend at least 1 or 2 years in like the top 5% or something. In other words,
Short-lived.
they had a good year or something like that.
Right.
They
And
made
then
income wise some kind of a thing. In other words, there's a lot of people rising up, a lot of people also falling down. Okay, there's a lot of churn, and that's what that mobility thing is about. And America has that. There's inequality if you just look at it in terms of where's the top and where's the bottom. But in between, there's a lot of rising and falling that goes on. And even in our lives, you can look at your life or anyone else's life, and you can be like, hey, I've been all over the place in these tax brackets.
And I want to comment on something that he said that I thought was really interesting is we don't stay in 10 years, you don't stay in the same income bracket. And that's something that I think we all need to take advantage of, because a lot of times when you find yourself now sitting on the other side of the curve, where your earnings have gone up, what you can afford has gone up, and things like that, is to always remember that at one point you were on the other bracket. And so that's a good point that he brought up over there, because I remember going through that in my life where I was like, pass me some help, man. Come on, pass me a bone. And now I'm on the other side where I'm looking at, saying, hey, maybe you need to pass some bone, right? So yeah, that was a pretty good good subject that he brought up there.
Interesting. Okay, so let's start landing the plane. We don't like making these too long. We want to keep them like an hour and 15, an hour 20, maybe an hour and a half at most, ladies and gentlemen. So again, let's remind ourselves of what we just did. Okay, we started out saying, hey, we're going to need to state very clearly what our objective is. We're going to talk about the origins of woke. What is woke, therefore? And I said, well, it is the notion that social and political life is basically characterized by power struggle between groups. It is not about competency, it's about power. It is not about values or ideals, it's about power. It is not about anything other than power. And hence, these norms, systems, or the idea of even an, shall we say, meritocracy, all that stuff is just a way of keeping the white heterosexual male patriarchy in power. And if you listen to me, Mr. Wokeman says, right, I can show you whom is oppressing you in this matrix of oppression. If you follow my dictates, do what I say, okay? Don't do what I, and say what I say, right? Follow the words, follow the language, follow my systems, understand what, shall we say, microaggressions are, understand what white privilege is, understand all these nuances of this weird game, okay? Then I can liberate you. I can free you. And we were saying that, hey, this is just another way in which people try to control others because they feel that they're better than them.
That's right.
And I say that it is true that some people are more skilled, some people are more experienced, some people have more intelligence than others. Okay. So the idea that this is a fact should not be thrown away. We are not out here to kind of paint some kind of strange egalitarian landscape where there is no such thing as someone who's better. It's like, no. But that there is a danger for you, me, and everybody else while we're out there bloviating about how we got the solution, right? There is a danger to slip into thinking that centralization will work. It has never worked. We started from the empirical side. We say time after time again, instance after instance in history, we see that it's a total disaster. And then we looked at it from a, shall we say, conceptual theoretical point of view, started talking about the nature of centralization and its drawbacks. When you centralize, you get this efficiency, but you actually lose robustness. You lose resolution. Okay.
That's right.
It's very visual when you think about it. Okay. And you become this one head that can be cut off, and all these kinds of things happen. And that's why it doesn't work. But we understand the human incentive to want to think that you can do better than others, to want to offer help, even the road to hell being paved with good intentions also is a part of this whole scheme. Hence, at the end of the day, top-down thinking empowers the elite.
That's right.
And with that, you have any last words, sir?
I think that when we just put it in perspective, when you are quote woke, just know that your wokeness may come out as if you have the answers, but that shouldn't stop your purpose, because there are times, thanks to wokeness, you have some of the best collection of YouTubers that are solving problems. Literally, I can't tell you how many times as a professional where I've ran into something that I knew this wasn't going to work, and I Googled exactly what I thought that was, and I saw videos on YouTube from woke people. So there is a side of wokeness that we could definitely take advantage of, but we have to be careful. Not everyone out there is really offering a solution, and in some cases they're just trade-offs.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back tomorrow, possibly with Jay Ibrahim. For those of you who know Jay Ibrahim and are fans of Jay Ibrahim, come and he's back. And for those of you who have not, witnessed one of the conversations with Jay Ibrahim, go check it out. Okay, previously, but he's a brilliant man, an interesting character, and we will be talking about how. Okay, I'm not gonna give it all. I'm not gonna give it up. Okay, because he might actually not show up. Okay, it might be Saturday. Okay, so what am I doing? Why did I just ruin your surprise? Okay, well, shout out, by the way, to the chat. Okay, a very active chat today.
Yes.
Shout out to Cichlid. Shout out to Technological Chaos. Okay, dropping it down, making it happen on the super chats. Okay, dropping it down, making it happen on the super chats. Thank you guys for liking the stream. Go ahead and share the stream. Okay, and we will be back again next week. I told you and I definitely on Thursday. Okay, but until then, also catch Case Closed. We'll be here with Ramil and Dr. Thunder, the real Dana. We're gonna mix it up here again. You guys will get the topics and you'll get the flyers and all that kind of stuff. Is it flyers? Why am I all of a sudden I'm reverting back to like the 90s, like flyers?
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that.
It's not flyers. It's not thumbnails. What do we call it? I don't know.
Reminders.
Reminders.
Yeah, that's all they are.
That's a good one. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, peace. We are out until next time.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what was behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannon could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising, convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.